The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great. Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome in Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Off and rolling here on a Wednesday. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister in the producer chair, and of course, the tag team champions, Mr. Elliott Rearing and Jacob Tissett. Gentlemen, good morning. Wow, fresh shaven face. I just noticed that.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, I
Good
shaved
for
my
you.
face. I shaved my face, Kinner. So
Whoa!
there it is.
It's aggression
No,
to start the show.
I shaved
No,
it.
I
shaved it right off. Kinner, I shaved it right off. No more hair.
Did
no
you lose
more.
a bet?
No, I didn't lose any
You
bet.
decided to freshen it up?
I just I got a lot of comparisons of who I looked like from people. People kept texting me, "You look like this. You look like this. You look homeless." Yada yada yada. And it was like, okay, I'll just shave it. I'll shave it. No soul patch for anybody. Nobody gets
would have been fun.
Nobody gets the soul patch.
You could have done a one-day soul patch.
I could have done the one-day soul patch. I was debating it.
I remember when Jake, at one point you made a bet, I can't remember how many games ago it was, that if the Bengals had won out, you were going to, what was it, the neck up? You want to have one little tiny hair
it
from
was
the
right
neck up?
before the Steelers game. It was if the Bengals had won out and finished 10-7, I would have shaved neck up. So that would have been fun.
I will say, neck up is hilarious. I had a point yesterday where I shaved, everything else, and it got down to like the lower part of the beard. I was debating keeping that. I was debating just from this point on, I was ready to just let it roll. But you know what? I said no. I have to go in public, so I'll make sure it's gone. So.
Well, congrats. You look good. I can't do the
Thank
baby
you.
face.
Thank you,
I can't
Justin.
I'm terrified to get rid of my facial hair.
Oh yeah,
I can't
no,
do it.
I won't be joining him anytime soon.
They're making fun of me in the
But a
chat.
lot.
No, they're asking us to join
No.
you.
They're all saying they're all doing a clean-shaven December. Let's do clean-shaven January.
I don't think so.
No, but like usually when people go like baby face, like you look younger, I feel like you look older baby face than when you had facial hair. Usually facial hair
I
makes
don't
you
know
look
about
older.
that.
I think you look older.
I don't know about that. I use the facial hair. Listen, I use the facial hair to cover up the double chin. So we let this roll.
We let this roll.
I'm with you.
Are you a
I'm
quick
with you on
grower?
that one.
Are you gonna have to shave daily to keep this clean shaven?
No, because that beard that I had there, that was like 4 months worth of work.
Oh, okay.
That was like a 4-month beard.
All right.
That little tiny guy I had,
yeah.
that was 4 months.
I got you.
So
So you're not shaving. That was a one-use razor, and you're good for the next.
I'm good for at least a month.
Okay. All right. Well,
good
wow,
for a
that's
month.
nice. That's really the main reason I don't shave.
Yes,
because
you have
it's
to do
an
it every
everyday
day. Yeah.
ordeal.
This
is a great
Vic
radio
Shavers.
segment.
This is a great.
no,
the good people of Dayton love this conversation.
Visual segments are the best.
Actually, I like to pique their curiosity a little bit, so they're like,
Get 'em
"What
over
are they
here."
talking about?" Let's go to Chatterbox Sports on YouTube and let's give the show a follow and
You're a
let's see
pro.
what all the hubbub is about.
You're a pro.
It's-
You're a pro.
It's the fear of missing out. People are missing out on Babyface Elliott today. Go check it out. Off the Bench, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. But no, appreciate everyone tuning in, hanging out. I'm in a good mood. I got my truck back finally. I've been without my truck for about a month.
There we go.
Because apparently when you put a tire back on, you're supposed to actually make sure you tighten it. And that's what you expect when you take it to a garage. I mean, that's kind of the least of what I would expect when you take your truck to a garage to take care of some stuff. But nonetheless, I got the truck back. That's all that matters. Happy holidays. We got a Christmas party tonight. What?
Did you get the garage yet?
Do I own the? No.
Not yet.
But,
Still working on that. All right.
I'm getting some stuff though, so that's all that matters.
All right. Yeah.
I'm a haggler. I'm haggling.
Are we invited to the Christmas party or no?
More the merrier, absolutely. If you guys want to show up tonight to the Christmas party, I'll let Kev know you guys are on the list. I'll put you on the list.
Okay.
Just say Kinner when you get there. They'll know what it means.
They'll throw us right out. Oh, your friends of Kinner's, get out of here.
All right. Nick Krall last night on the Reds Hot Stove League show again addressed some of the issues and some of the problems they're running into when it comes to the trade market right now. So we'll get to that coming up around the corner. Craig Samlin last night on Chatterbox Bengals threw out a question regarding, the surprise that was the Super Bowl run for the Bengals back in 21. What would be considered a bigger surprise, that Super Bowl run that they had in 21, or if the Bengals had won out to make the playoffs here in 2024? We'll get to that coming up. Jacob's going to rank the top 5 quarterbacks in the college football playoffs, plus a little buy or sell. So a lot to get into here today, but we'll kick off the show, of course, without a sounder. I know, kill me later, but let's send it to our guy Elliot for Elliot's headlines.
It's the holiday season.
Boom, boom,
Cut him
boom.
some slack.
It is. Was that it?
Tis the
That was
season.
without the sounder? All right. So
Without the sounder. Mirror. There you
There
go.
you go.
That's your signal.
again, not a ton of sports yesterday, but we'll start with bowl season in the what was it? The
Scooter's Coffee Bowl.
Scooters Coffee Bowl in Frisco, Texas.
That's right.
Memphis 42, West Virginia 37. It was kind of close towards the end there. It got a little testy, but Memphis was able to hold them off. So good for them. Also, for those that care, they won 42-37. The spread in this game, which I took, -4.5.
Great cover.
-4.5. So never a doubt there.
Garrett Green, 330 yards passing, 95 yards rushing.
That's pretty
if
good.
He comes back for Rich Rod and plays quarterback for the Mountaineers next year. They could be a decently scary team in the Big 12.
That's pretty good. The Bucks, they take home the NBA Cup title in all its glory. The NBA Cup is over. The Bucks are victorious, 97-81, the final score. Giannis, 26 points, 10 assists, 19 rebounds in the win.
I got Centelled this morning.
Oh, no.
NBA Centel, famous Twitter account. They tweeted a picture of Damian Lillard holding the trophy after the game with the quote, "You can't say anything about me now. I'm an NBA champion." And for a second, I thought it was real because that would be hilarious after winning the NBA Cup. But luckily for Lillard and the Bucks, that was a Centel quote. So
Very, very, very
just saving
funny.
the good people out there in case they stumble across it too.
Did I get sent out as well? Because I thought I saw one that I was actually about to poke fun of. It was Giannis saying the job is done. I thought that was a real
Oh, no.
quote. Maybe it's not.
Maybe.
I think you both got.
Yeah.
I didn't get got. I knew I got got.
You knew you got?
So that you can only get got if you share the false information on air.
True. True.
Which I've done before.
Speaking of the NBA, Adam Silver has announced he's looking into the critiques of increased three-point volume. Quote, "The answer is yes. Many discussions about the style of basketball being played," Silver told a small group of reporters Tuesday night before the championship game. "I would not reduce it to a so-called three-point shooting issue. I think we look more holistically at the skill level on the floor, the diversity of offense, the fan reception to the game, all of the above." So maybe they scooch that line back. That's the only thing in my mind that would help it. If you scoot it back, I mean, obviously the sidelines would have to be reworked a little bit.
I'd just make dunks 3.
A dunk is 3. They're gonna have to do something. And like I was listening to the Dan Patrick show yesterday, and he said that everybody's making fun of Rob Manfred for the golden bat rule and some of the other silly stuff that they throw out in baseball. As we make fun of it, it does show that they are trying to get more people in. It does show that they're doing something. The NBA Cup is a way to try to get more people in, but I think Dan Patrick said it best. If you have to pay your players more money to play harder
In regular season games.
in
Like,
regular
most of these
season games,
count.
that doesn't make it interesting for me because they're not trying in non-NBA Cup regular season games. Like, that doesn't do anything for me. So they're going to have to change something in the NBA. Adam Silver knows it. We'll see what the NBA does. Ratings are at an all-time low, down 48% since 2000.
Up in China.
Down 40. Really? How
Adam Silver was asked about the ratings. He said they're up in China.
about that?
Yeah, Darvin Ham, assistant coach for the Bucks, ex-Lakers coach, 14-0 in the NBA Cup. Never lost a game in the NBA Cup.
Yeah, how about that?
Coach of the year.
Moving on, the Ivy League. The Ivy League is set to participate in FCS football playoffs going forward starting in 2025. The Ivy League championship winner will get an auto bid for the FCS postseason. I think it was the only sport where they couldn't compete for a championship, and now they will be able to in FCS. So good for the Ivy League there. outside of that, not a ton else in sports, but unless you guys have anything there.
Not much.
Anything? Kenner, you got anything from last night?
Yeah, we talked about getting got earlier. I had to fact check this little stat that popped up, if that's what you want to call it. But Lamar Jackson's been around a while. He's won a couple MVPs. He's having statistically a better year than his previous MVP seasons. Lamar's been around a while, right? Yes. How about this? Lamar Jackson has never played the Pittsburgh Steelers in Baltimore with fans in attendance. The only time that he has faced the Steelers was in Baltimore was during the COVID year. So I thought that was weird. He had to go back and look. Obviously, he wasn't the starter his rookie year when they played the Steelers in Baltimore. That was still Joe Flacco's team at that time. I guess 2019 was the final week. They rested him. They started RG3. In 21, he was hurt. They started Huntley. In 22, he was hurt. They started Huntley. In 23 last year, it was the final game, so they rested him and started Huntley. And that's kind of wild that as long as he's been in the league, he has never faced the Steelers in Baltimore before. Kind of wild. That just a random stat, means absolutely nothing, but I thought it was kind of strange.
No, yeah, that is wild. I mean, I remember when the Bengals were playing the Ravens earlier this year, there was a shockingly low number of Joe Burrow versus Lamar Jackson matchups. And I think it's easy to forget with these guys that are so prevalent. Obviously, we talk about Burrow's injuries a lot here in Cincinnati, but even outside of Cincinnati, I'm sure it's forgotten with how prevalent he's been, how many games he's missed. And I think we do the same thing with Lamar Jackson. 2 MVPs. Ravens are always near the top of the AFC, but he's missed a lot of time with injuries as well and a lot of opportunities to maybe even add more MVPs to that list that he already has. So, yeah, I think injuries with him is something that after the last couple of years have kind of been brushed under the rug, but have been a big concern his entire career.
Last night, Dayton. Look, everyone's talking about that top 25 matchup, Dayton and Cincinnati coming up on Friday. Dayton coming off that win.
You did call it last night. That was a trap game. That was a classic trap game.
Oh, it's the exact definition of one. You got 5-4 UNLV. Luckily, you had them at home, but I think that could have been the problem as well. You have UNLV at home. You're playing at home a couple nights after you played Marquette, and I've talked to a lot of Flyer fans that have been lifelong season ticket holders that said Saturday night was one of the loudest, if not the loudest, memory that they have at UD Arena. They come from behind, look down 10 at the half. They outscore Marquette 45-27 in the second half. They come from behind, win. The way, the big shots that were made and stops throughout, like it was as loud as that arena has been in its existence, and there's been a lot of loud games there. So to go from that emotional high, beating the number 6 team in the country, you crack the top 25. You're looking ahead to Cincinnati, the number 19 team in the country on Friday night. But now you got 5-4 UNLV coming in. They were a 10.5-point favorite. I was saying it all day yesterday. I was like, UNLV scares me more for Dayton than Cincinnati because typical Anthony Grant-led teams, it's easy to rise up to play the North Carolinas and the Iowa States and the UConns and the Marquettes and the Cincinnatis when they have a number in front of their name. But the Anthony Grant-led teams, their problem has always been they play down to their competition more than any other team that I follow. It is insane. They would barely be MAC champions. They barely beat MAC teams. They barely beat bad teams. Last night they should have won by double digits, and they had to hold on. Malachi Smith, by the way, shout out to him, the and one to win the game and put them up on top late. But Dayton gets the win. They avoid the loss, but that would have been something. You crack the top 25, and the first thing you do with that ranking is lose to 5-4, now 5-5 UNLV. But they escaped at home, and now it sets up a true top 25 matchup on Friday. But, yeah, they avoided that disaster last night at home.
It's going to be a big one on Friday.
That would have stunk if they lost before on Friday.
It would have. It would have
really stunk.
It would have stunk because that means they would
ranked game rocked.
And it means they definitely would have won on Friday. So now we got
that too.
Now we at least got a chance. Now the Bearcats at least have a chance. Also, a couple other things I just saw. Did you know the Live versus PGA thing was last night?
Yeah.
I mean, did they know?
Bryson DeChambeau errant tee shot on like the second hole hit Scotty Scheffler's dad.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know this was happening. This is why golf. Come on, golf.
Terrible advertising.
Fix it.
I probably would have watched it.
It was on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
What time?
I think it was like kind of early.
Was it really?
Like, I don't think it was at like 7 or something. Like I think they did it relatively early. But yeah, I don't know. The fact that it wasn't more published was crazy. I only recognize it as social clips.
And finally, a Netflix sports series following the 2024 SEC college football season is coming in the summer of 2025, providing unfiltered access to coaches and players in college football's most dominant conference and giving an exclusive look at key matchups throughout the season.
That's going to rock.
What's it called? It just means more? Like, I'm curious what it's called.
Maybe.
There's no name as of right now.
It's made by the same people that made Drive to Survive and Quarterback and Wide Receiver and all those inside look at Netflix series. So should be awesome. I'm really excited for that. I think the SEC football is probably the most interesting conference in maybe any sport. I think all the intricacies of SEC football and the donors and the fan bases and all that stuff, I think it's really interesting. And with NIL and this really being the first year with the tampering and all that stuff in the offseason, I think this is going to be a really interesting series that maybe gets some people in trouble. I'm not really sure how deep they're going to be allowed to go, but if it's unfiltered access and these schools don't have the final cut, I wouldn't be shocked if there's some allegations or punishments that come from this series if it truly is unfiltered access.
Yeah.
The only other thing that if you mentioned it, I wasn't paying attention, so I apologize if you did, but Michael Penix starting for the Falcons.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't mention that. That's correct.
He's listed as QB1 now over Kirk Cousins, and Kirk has a lot of money left on that deal. I think it's a $25 million cap hit next year in fully guaranteed money.
I'll apologize for that take. I said drafting Penix was the worst draft pick in the history of the draft. Wrong. Hand up.
If this is the end of Kirk Cousins, I assume someone's going to trade for him.
Kirk is not done.
No, he's not. But if it is the end of Kirk Cousins, he ends his career with an 83-74-2 record, 1 playoff win in 13 years, and an NFL record $321 million earned. Whew. Highest earned.
Is he Pro Bowler?
I believe so.
I mean, Huntley's a Pro Bowler. I would assume Kirk Cousins has picked up a Pro Bowler.
Kirk was a Pro Bowler in both places, Minnesota and Washington. Good.
All right. We follow teams that many people consider to be cheap organizations, the Bengals and Reds, right? And when the Bengals get poked fun at because, not having an outdoor or an indoor practice facility until the bubble, right? And they have to walk across the street. There's a lot of things that happen with organizations. You're like, oh man, that's such a small market team thing right there. Oh man, look how poor that owner is. Last night, an NBA team did something that is so cheap and so embarrassing and so cringe that even the Reds and the Bengals would have to mock and laugh at this particular franchise. I'll tell you what they did to ruin this kid's Christmas. When we come back, more Off the Bench next. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Look, here on Off the Bench, we talk a lot about the Charlotte Hornets, right? Big Charlotte Hornets fans here.
It is the Charlotte Hornets show. That's what they say.
I am the Charlotte Hornets. I am the Charlotte Hornets. We are the Charlotte Hornets.
You may want to hold back on that. Did you hear what they did last night to ruin this kid's Christmas for halftime entertainment?
Yeah, that wasn't great.
Wild.
I did not hear this.
Last night, the Hornets, they recently gifted a kid a PS5 during halftime at one of their home games. So it was a little feel-good moment. He's up on the Jumbotron. Everyone's clapping. You can see the excitement on the kid's face. He just got gifted a PS5 right around the holidays. How cool is that? But it was just done for PR purposes. It was just done to look good in front of the home fans. They actually said, hey, kid, thank you for the reaction and the emotion, but we're going to need that probably empty box back that says PS5 on it. But here's a jersey. They pulled the okie doke on him. They pulled, yes, like what a wild thing to do. If the Reds did this, I would be so embarrassed and it would be so cringe. You Bengals fans have to fight off, the jokes and people poking fun at the team all the time for like the bubble and all that stuff, right? Like that's nothing compared to what this is. This is one of the most insane things I've ever heard. The Hornets had to issue an apology, and they ultimately did get the kid a PS5 as well as VIP tickets to a future game. But and who approved that? Who in their right mind said, hey, for this PR thing at halftime, we're going to give this kid a PS5, but we're going to take it away and just give him a jersey. Kids will understand. Who approved that? Who thought that was going to be a good idea? that is probably one of the most embarrassing sports stories I've heard. Small market, large market, it doesn't matter. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know how you do that.
I'm trying to count the amount of winning seasons the Charlotte franchise has had.
Bad owner.
I'm seeing 3.
Yeah.
I'm seeing 3 in 13 years. And they've never advanced past the semis, is that right? Yeah. They've lost in the semis. That's truly one of the worst franchises in all of sports. What a joke.
Would you say that if the owner of that terrible, terrible franchise was in like GOAT conversations, the success of that franchise should hurt him?
I thought he sold the team. Is he not the owner?
I thought he sold it.
For the majority of those 13 seasons, he has been.
He was a bad owner. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
LeBron's Vegas team's going to win multiple championships.
No.
Yeah, so the quote.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, the quote that they put out, simply put, we turn the ball over and we apologize. We have reached out to the family and are committed to not only making it right, but to exceed expectations. We will be providing the fan with the PS5 that he should have taken home last night along with the VIP experience to a future game. Guys, this isn't a mistake. It's not like there was miscommunication. You literally just set this kid up to get the emotional response from him for the feel-good vibes to make people think that you're such a caring and giving organization just to, ruin the kid's Christmas after. This is an insane PR stunt that backfired, and not even backfired. It wasn't even intended to do anything good anyways. This one's wild. I've never heard anything like this. Pretty bad.
I'm trying to imagine the Reds doing something like this.
It's not that hard to imagine.
The only thing I could think of is somebody hits the Toyota Tundra sign, and then the Reds tell this guy or the person, whoever wins it, yeah, we can't get the truck down, so unfortunately, we're just not going to do anything. But it's yours. Yeah. You own it.
Up there.
We'll put
you
your name
get it
on
down.
it.
Yeah, you own it up there.
You got to get the crane that lifts that thing down. So,
to be fair, the Reds are actually very good at the promotional side of things. Like if the way they put a roster together could match their promotional efforts, I think they'd be pretty damn good. Although I do think we have milked the Big Red Machine bobblehead promotional giveaves. I think we're done with that, correct?
Well, get ready for the new bit because there's 2 Ellie bobbleheads this year, and I would assume next year that could get as high as 5, maybe double digits by the end of his career.
And the anniversary they're going to do this year for the Big Red Machine, it'll be something to behold.
We have I think a couple Pete nights on the schedule.
Yeah,
an Ellie De La Cruz basketball jersey to go with the 2 bobbleheads. They're really milking 44 as much as they can.
Before he leaves.
They before. Well, last year, it was the City Connect bobblehead night for Ellie. That was one of the. I mean, people stood in line for hours to get that bobblehead to get that one, and people went right away. I mean, we talked about it. That was pretty much all there was to talk about during that little sad stretch of Reds season last year in the summer when there was nothing else to talk about. Yeah, people stood in line for hours just to literally turn right back around and sell it, and I mean for hundreds of dollars. I mean. My only bobblehead that I had, I didn't realize I gave it to you guys. It's in the studio, but that was the only one I had. I'm a little sad, to be honest. I don't have it. I'm out $500.
I'm gonna be honest. I've never understood the hype around bobbleheads. Like, they're cool. Like, if I go to the stadium, whenever I get there and they give me a bobblehead, I'm gonna keep it. But I'm never gonna leave my house 3.5 hours before the game and wait in a 2-hour line to get a bobblehead. I'll never do that. I'm not gonna blame anybody for doing it. But at the end of the day, it's just a piece of plastic there. It's not. It cost what, $0.01 to make that?
And the Ellie bobblehead line's one thing, but the 3-hour line for like the Graham Ashcraft bobblehead,
just
like
nuts.
what are we doing here?
It's just nuts.
He's not even gonna be here. Gave his number away.
Yeah, you talked about those Reds promotions. So this started because of a bad promotion that backfired on the Hornets, and I said, man. Like people, I mean, you look at a small organization like the Reds, the Bengals in the NFL, there's always things that people just grab onto and poke fun of these organizations, but no one has provided a blunder like what we saw from the Hornets last night. But I did say I think the Reds do a good job with their promotions. It's the only thing they can hang their hat on. It's the one major thing they can do to try to get fans into the ballpark. I'm like, to be fair, I would rather the Reds never do another bobblehead giveaway for the rest of eternity if it just meant that all that money and effort into those would be turned into a center fielder or an outfielder or another pitcher or just something along those lines, right? Like I really don't care about these promotions. I'd rather have a product that I want to go to the ballpark to watch than to have a bobblehead just to distract me from what's on the field. So that's kind of how I am with that. You guys Seinfeld fans? Probably not. You see the Yankees did that, or was it the Yankees or Mets that did the Seinfeld bobblehead promotion last year?
I don't know.
I didn't watch Seinfeld, if we're going to be completely honest, so I don't know.
I forgot. You're 25. I'm 35. Jake's younger. Yep, I'm aging myself. Sorry. We'll move on to that.
Wasn't Costanza? Wasn't he a Mets fan or was he a Yankees fan? I don't know. He was one of the fans.
So I think, yeah, they did a bobblehead giveaway for him last year. There were some cool bobblehead promotions last year. But while we're on it, the 2025 promotions calendar, and Jake, you mentioned it. So here's the bobblehead giveaways for the Reds coming up this season. So on April 12th, it'll be the Ellie switch hitting bobblehead. On May 3rd, you'll get the Star Wars Clone Trooper. That's the other thing. The Reds love Star Wars. They love the Star Wars stuff. They throw that out there because people jump on that. The Star Wars stuff, people jump all over. On May 17th, you can get a Mr. Red race car. Try and stop me. I'm going to be in line early. I don't know about that. Tyler Stevenson will get a bobblehead on June 7th. June 18th, Ellie sliding bobblehead. August 30th, Hunter Green and his dog. Hunter Green and his dog will be a bobblehead on August 30th.
I might wait in line for that one.
Will you?
If the dog's head also bobbles, yes.
Okay.
If both of their heads bobble, I'm in line.
Nonsense.
My favorite Reds bobbleheads over the years, the Dusty Baker bobblehead with the toothpick holder. Thought that one was really cool. Scooter on a scooter. Scooter Jeanette on a scooter.
Classic.
That one was pretty cool.
Who would have thought that one?
The Adam Dunn one.
What was the Adam Dunn one?
With the big head. He had one with like a huge head.
Don't remember that.
We used to have it in our old house. And Puig with the horse.
Yeah, I was gonna say Puig on the pony. That was the other one.
I do remember Puig.
That's the one. I think we've talked about that. That's how we knew Puig wasn't going to be a Red long term, anyways. But the whole reason we knew that Puig was going to be traded before the deadline is because there was a Yasiel Puig the pony giveaway for later in the season, and then all of a sudden they announced in the middle of the week that they took that bobblehead giveaway and they just moved it up like a month and a half because I think they had made the decision that they were going to trade him, so they had to do the bobblehead giveaway with him on the roster still. So, but yeah, that was that. Yeah, that's how everyone kind of figured that would be the case. But by the way, they are doing a Pete Rose night on May 14th.
I think there's a couple.
What else?
I think there's a couple Pete Rose nights.
Oh, by the way, and I said we're running, the Big Red Machine stuff. They're doing a Big Red Machine hat giveaway on June 28th.
Nice.
Margaritaville night. How about that? July 26th.
Okay, that's fun.
Will you guys wear the City Connect floppy hat?
No, I will
Elliot's
not.
dad's going to make him get there 4 hours early for the City Connect floppy hat.
My dad
loves the floppy hat.
My dad gets into all the Reds promotions, unfortunately.
Do you still have that USA floppy hat?
Yeah, we do. We have a couple of them. We got a whole family set. Do you think the Reds will have a make the postseason night? Like a clinch the playoffs, we're a good franchise kind of night.
Does Train count as a playoff win? Not a series, but a game scheduling Train. To come have a post-game concert?
Train performing a post game that counts as one win.
Okay,
so,
cool. Starting 1-0.
Yeah, if they win a couple games this year, sure, promotions are sick, super sick. But if you win 75 games, I could give a damn about your bobblehead.
How about Ellie De La Cruz basketball jersey? That'll be a giveaway on July 12th. Man, you're right, Elliot. It does seem like, hey, we only have Ellie for a few more years. We are going to milk every Ellie De La Cruz giveaway that we possibly can. In one season, in one summer, 3 different Ellie De La Cruz giveaways to get people to come to the ballpark.
I'm happy for him.
We can't talk about promotions and gloss over the greatest thing to ever happen to professional sports ever, and that's 3-2-1 night.
Oh,
3-2-1 night's the greatest promotion of all time.
Yeah, you're right.
So there you go. Okay, let's get to it. We're gonna step away for a few moments when we come back with Reds. We'll talk Reds more in depth actually when we come back. Nick Krall last night, Reds president of baseball operations, was on the Reds Hot Stove League show. Mark Sheldon guest hosted that along with Tommy Thraw, and Mark Sheldon asked him a few questions about how often the Reds have been brought up, activity wise, and some names and trades and free agencies. But Nick Krall's response about some of the roadblocks that they're running into when it comes to trying to trade to add to this roster, thought it was kind of interesting. We'll get to that when we come back. More Off the Bench next. Welcome back Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Yesterday, we discussed the fact that the Reds are, they're being linked to Teoscar Hernandez. Obviously, we talked a lot about, some of the other big names that the Reds have been in on when it comes to whether free agency or through trades. So at the end of the day, like, we've gone from this stage where we were excited initially to hear how active the Reds have been in some of these trade discussions or in free agency. But now we're getting to the point to where at some point you can't just be in on these guys. You have to land one of them to be able to really get fans to truly believe that you're serious about taking this team to that next level. And all I said on yesterday's show was the only thing I did not want is I just don't want to be worked. I would much rather the Reds not be linked to anybody than to just be throwing your name in the hat just to show fans that, just to trick fans into pretending that you're actually making an effort to get these guys. And the reason I said that, you could go in after Teoscar Hernandez, but like, why waste the time and resources if you know that there's no chance in hell that you're going to be able to financially offer him a contract? And the reason I bring that up, when I saw the fact that the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Blue Jays and the Red Sox, that they're all in on Teoscar Hernandez, it was just kind of one of those things where I'm like, maybe I'm being too negative here, but just stop, Reds. Like, you're not going to outbid those teams. So stop putting it out there for us fans to get excited about something that there's a 0% chance of happening. I actually did believe, when they were looking to get Garrett from the White Sox not too long ago, that one I truly believe they had a legitimate shot at doing, because although they lack the financial means to be able to compete with the Dodgers, Yankees, and other teams in the free agent market, they have the prospect means to be able to compete with any team in baseball when it comes to landing a name in a big trade. So that's why I was more confident about the Reds targeting the pitcher from the White Sox not too long ago more than I am about Teoscar Hernandez. But last night, we got a chance to hear from Nick Krall, president of baseball operations, when he sat down with Tommy Thaw and, of course, Mark Sheldon, MLB.com, on the Reds Hot Stove League show. Here's a clip we shared on Chatterbox Sports on Twitter and X last night regarding the conversation between Sheldon and Nick Krall about the Reds offseason thus far. Take a listen. There's one interesting thing he says about the Reds and how they're trying to target guys through trades and some of the roadblocks they're running into. Here's Nick Krall last night on the Reds Hot Stove League show.
Nick, you guys made a trade last month with Jonathan India going to Kansas City for Brady Singer. Are you close to making any more moves? It seems like it's been a little quiet, not just around here, but around the industry, with the exception of the Cubs lately. What are you kind of close to, or what are you seeing right now in the landscape?
Yeah, we came out of the chute and we offered Nick Martinez a qualifying offer. He accepted it. We made a trade with the Royals with Brady Singer and Jonathan India, and we looked at that and we feel really good about where our pitching staff is. I think you can always add more pitching. You can always get better. We've had a lot of conversations over the last few weeks just to bolster our position player group. But right now we haven't gotten anything and haven't made a ton of progress at this point. But I think we've had a lot of conversations. We know what the landscape looks like, and it's just trying to figure out how to make a deal to. Whether it's a free agent or a trade that can help this club. What has been the difficulty in closing a deal, either for a trade or a free agent? I think there's been a lot of conversations about from a trade market. A lot of people are looking for major league pieces back, and when you're doing that, I can make a trade and fill a hole, but when I fill a hole, I open up another one. So it's just, do you have a way to backfill that? I think that's been a little bit of trouble with. That's been the challenge, I guess, trying to fill those holes. And then free agency, it's all about, do you want to come here, and then what's the money, and do you match up?
Again, that was Nick Krall, president of baseball operations, with Mark Sheldon last night on the Reds Hot Stove League show. I agree with him. Like, I think that's what the market has basically been set in regards to the trade market has basically dictated that a lot of the teams that are willing to move on from guys, they're looking to get Major League Baseball ready players now. They're not interested in prospects this go round. If it was a prospect heavy market this offseason, the Reds could be in on any name that they truly wanted. But because the trade market has dictated the fact that all these teams, they want MLB ready talent now, outside of Jonathan India, there really was no other name that they could realistically move on from. And be in a position where they could make that happen. So I thought that was an interesting takeaway from Nick Krall last night. And if that is the case at this point, I think there is 0 point in getting excited about a big potential move for the Reds, because it sounds like that potential move doesn't exist, at least as we sit here in mid-December.
Yeah, that seemed to me like he was checking off boxes. And it kind of seems
we got to be interested in X number of players type of thing.
Yeah, like it almost seems. You remember when the Reds made that terrible trade for Mike Minor? Yeah. And it was like,
the innings eater.
See, we're trying to win. We get Mike Minor. But nobody wants Mike Minor, and he's old and he stinks. This seems to me like he's like, all right, we made the Jonathan India trade. You guys love that. We brought back Nick Martinez. You guys love that. So I think we're good, right? You guys love those two moves. I think we're fine. We don't need to do any more. That's what that conversation kind of seemed like to me, that clip there. I would be thoroughly disappointed if the Cincinnati Reds are unable to sign at least one or trade for one veteran outfielder who knows what they're doing with a baseball bat, can hit home runs, and can be efficient every single day. I would be pretty disappointed. They're going to sign somebody, but I fear it's going to be the Jesse Winker type of deal. And I don't have anything against Jesse Winker. It's just I don't want more of the same.
Yeah.
And it's that half-hearted approach that the Reds have had for so long. We throw the phrase "all in" around like it's candy on this show, and everybody else does it. We're not the only ones that do it. But truly, there has to be a point when the Reds go all in. I don't know if it's this year. It has to be next year. We have to have a plan. You get 4 years max, 3 years with Terry Francona. You have to capitalize on this. And coming into this season with pretty much most of the same roster, not a whole lot of changes. And Krall said before this offseason, or at least during the offseason, that they need outfield help. They need more help in the outfield. And they haven't addressed that yet. So I don't know when that's going to come, but clearly it's evident that there is nothing close. There's nothing on the way. There's nothing in a conversation right now, serious conversation involving any sort of outfielder. They have to do something, and I'd imagine we're going to see at least one more move, but I don't know if it's going to be the move that I expected after the Jonathan India trade and probably what most of the fan base expected.
Yeah, I think this is kind of exhale, Reds fans. Don't hold your breath through the rest of the offseason expecting a big move because it's not coming anytime soon. I think that kind of stinks, but when we talked about yesterday the names associated with Teoscar Hernandez with the Reds, we kind of made this assumption as well. It just hurts a little bit more to hear it from Nick Krall. But I would imagine when the Reds, the Yankees, the Phillies, the Dodgers are on the line for a player, the Reds aren't giving a competitive offer. I don't think that's necessarily a shock to many people. It does just stink to hear your GM say that out loud. But yeah, I think the Reds' path to adding the talent they need to add to be a legitimate contender next year has always been through trade. I think that's always been the most feasible route for them to add a player that can really raise the expectations of this team, because I just don't think with the way contracts are going, they can be competitive in the open market of free agency. So they're going to have to be willing to mortgage prospects, and when that happens, you have to have more conversations about when to go all in, because obviously there's a little bit more risk that comes with the trades than if you're just putting money on the table with free agency signings. So that could be a hard part too. If there's not a lot of trade options out there, then they're asking for more prospects. Do you want to make that kind of move to go into this season? I don't know how they sit with that. And as we've talked about with this offseason, for sure, the loss of the TV deal and the loss of money, does that make them more risk adverse? Are they not wanting to take big swings because you know that you have prospect depth in the organization now and you don't have money for long-term deals? I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff at play. Obviously not the quote you want to hear from Nick Krall, but as much as it does sting to hear him say that, I don't know that it changes that much for my offseason outlook for the Reds. I think this has kind of been the general expectation for me.
So when you said, it's not the thing you want to hear, I'm a little different. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Okay. I needed to hear that because, and here's why. Like I said, my big thing is I don't like to be worked. Don't lie to me. Don't pretend to be something you're not, Cincinnati. We're working hard to get this Teoscar Hernandez done. Are you? I don't know if you are. I think it's one of those like, hey, let's just get in touch with them. Let's just say we're interested. But we all know deep down, if it becomes a bidding war, you're not. We just know there's a 0.0% chance that the Reds are coming away with a deal like that. So rather than just continuing to do this whole charade and this song and dance of like every time a name the Reds are involved in, we get our hopes up. At least hearing him say that, we now know what to expect kind of moving forward. But no, I know what you're saying. Like, yeah, you don't want to hear that, but I at least want to hear that they're acknowledging the fact that those roadblocks exist, and that basically saying don't get your hopes up when it's all said and done. The other point he made that I thought was a good point, whether we want to hear it or not, and I don't even think that the Reds have a lot of players on this roster that would get a big return anyways. If we're trying to hit the trade market to move MLB ready players now for other MLB ready players, who on this Reds roster outside of Jonathan India, who they've already moved on from, who else on this active roster right now for the Reds could they theoretically move to get the kind of return that we're hoping when it comes to some of the big names out there? I don't think that player or players exist, or at least exist to the level, to the value that the Reds would need to be able to get a deal done. Like, I just don't think any player on this roster right now exists to get the Reds any kind of major deal done or anything back in a major trade in return. And we all know the limitations they have in free agency. I think you're right, Elliot. At this point, the biggest move moving forward, and maybe we're wrong, but the Jesse Winker thing seems to be something that is more attainable, realistically attainable for the Reds when it's all said and done.
I think Spencer Steer could be a guy that could get some attention. I think Spencer Steer's a name that people want. I know that, his defense isn't the greatest. He's not the best offensive player. But he plays 160 games, and he plays at every single position. Teams are interested in that. Teams see value in that. And I could see the Reds potentially trading Spencer Steer for somebody. The issue is you would then have to fill left field as well. You'd have to fill left field and right field at the same time. So I think there's maybe a couple names. Obviously, like they would never do it. Tyler Stevenson's a name. People would absolutely be interested in Tyler Stevenson. They're not going to trade Tyler Stevenson, and they shouldn't. But that's another name that would warrant some significant value on the trade market. Outside of that, you're probably, though, right. Yeah, there's not a ton else that, A, you'd be willing to trade, and B, has enough juice to get a deal done.
And also to feed off his other point, you move on from Tyler Stevenson to get an outfielder. Well, now you need a catcher. So it's
Correct.
Like you can't by trying to plug one hole, you create another hole by trying to get that. So then it's just like whack-a-mole. You're constantly just trying to hit at something, trying to fix a problem, and that's the other problem and predicament that the Reds run into. And when you're not a deep roster, and the Reds aren't, that creates those kind of difficulties. Spencer Steer is one that you move on from, and I'm not saying that's not a hole that you have to fill, but because he's so versatile and does a lot of different things, it's not one particular thing you have to replace. Tyler Stevenson, a catcher, that's a lot of offensive production and, of course, a very important position that they would have to replace if they did move on from him. And then, like I said, like he said, can't create more holes just to fill this hole over here. So I think we could all agree. I think last night, it's not like what Jacob said. It's not what we wanted to hear, but at least we kind of have a fair idea of what to expect moving forward. Probably let's not get our hopes up for any major splash moving forward, but let's not be negative either. The Reds got Terry Francona. They went out and got Terry Francona. They went and added another starter to this rotation of Brady Singer. They took advantage of the Jonathan India value and were able to address another need. So they added depth to pitching. They bring Nick Martinez back. Had they let him go, I wouldn't have been bummed, but I'm actually glad that they still have him on this roster from that perspective. If there's no other major splash moving forward, we can't also sit here and be negative and act as if this team didn't still have a successful offseason, even with a lot of January and February still to go.
I want the Reds to make one decent-sized move. I don't think they will, but I want it to happen so I can believe in what's happening here. I want to believe in Nick Krall. I want to believe in what he's built so far, and what he's built is something to be proud about. Ellie and Matt and Nick Lodolo and Hunter Green and all these guys coming up right now. I'm excited for Rhett Lauder. There's a lot of excitement. I just want to capitalize on it. I don't want to have another season like last year happen where you're banking on just every young player to be, A, good at baseball, and B, be healthy. I don't think that's a recipe for success. You have to sign free agents. You have to make trades. They've done a decent job at that the past couple of years. I need it to continue, though. I need more.
Yeah, I think one more move is really what we're asking for. You get one legitimate starting everyday bat in that lineup, and we feel a lot different going into the season. Not just about the success of the team, but also the direction of the front office. They're showing you that they're committed to trying to win, at least to a degree. And I just think that move is going to come from a trade, and I don't know that it's necessarily MLB guys, unless it's one of the pitchers, but you get down deep into the the rotation there. We've talked about the Chase Pettys, the Connor Phillips. I think you get a group of those prospects in and you make a move, and we have a conversation about what this team is with one more piece, and that's probably it. I think one bat is probably all we're going to add, and whether we like that or not, I think that's probably the reality of the situation. And if it's the right one, I think it can be enough to be a competitive team next year, not just in the NL Central, but maybe make a little run.
Another move that was made yesterday obviously doesn't involve the Reds, although impacts the Reds. It's within the division. The Cubs made a lot of noise, obviously, this past week when they go out and they get a Kyle Tucker. But then they turn right around and they move on from Cody Bellinger. They sent him to the Yankees. What was your reaction last night when you saw the Cubs make another major move, this time shipping off a big name off their roster?
Yeah, I don't care about that because the Yankees get whoever they want forever. They missed out on Juan Soto, and then they build a super team of players, and it makes me so upset that I can't even speak. The story from that, though, is Cody Bellinger, his wife, is Giancarlo Stanton's ex-girlfriend.
That's right.
That's the story there.
Love it.
So maybe there's going to be some sort of drama in the Yankees clubhouse. That's what I want.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the most fun part. I thought it was cool that Cubs fans were, we don't have a superstar. We need a superstar on our team. The Cubs say, all right. They go get Kyle Tucker, and they're like, we got our superstar, but we're not going to keep anyone else. So we're going to give the Yankees Bellinger for free, and we'll see where we go from there. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Let me ask you this. Would you rather have Juan Soto for $700? What does he get paid? $700?
Yeah, it's $800.
Would you rather have Juan Soto, or would you rather have Cody Bellinger, Max Fried, Devin Williams, and Christian Walker?
I said it as soon as they missed out on Soto. They're going to be better off for it.
I'd rather have the team of superstars every time. Every single day of the week and twice on Sunday. I'd rather have the rest of the bunch.
Yep, and I'm the same way, again, because if one of those guys get injured and are out for amount of time, you got two other guys that could still carry a good load. Then you lose Soto for a long period of time. How many guys does it take to replace his production? Quite a few. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think that's an obvious one, nonetheless. But all right, good stuff. Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm curious what our guy Reed thought of the Bellinger move. Have you guys talked to him? I mean, did that move make sense? Like, are we like why?
I'm glad you brought that up. Reed just texted or typed up in the chat, Cody Bellinger was going to be a bench player on the Cubs.
No, and like that's really, I don't have a hot take about it. I don't have a hot take regarding that. I just was curious. Like I mean, Cody Bellinger, like you moving on from him after you add Tucker. I didn't know. It's not like I'm a Cubs aficionado to know exactly how that whole lineup will look. So I was just kind of curious his thoughts on that. So not as big a deal as what some are making it to be then.
I mean, he's a good player. I think people would want Cody Bellinger, so I'm imagining Cubs fans.
Well, I mean, if the Reds trade a player that I think's good, I immediately don't think he has a spot on the team. So it's nothing. It's the same. It's the same for everyone.
That's fair.
There are people across baseball that are like the Reds. You had Jonathan, a team that's been rebuilding for years. You have a rookie of the year in Jonathan India, and a few years later, you trade him away. For people who don't follow the Reds like we do, they're scratching their head saying, what the hell? Why did the Reds move on from Jonathan India? And that was the reaction when that happened. Not from people within Cincinnati. And let's be clear, there's probably a good pocket of Reds fans that didn't like the Jonathan India trade. Let's just be real. But more than likely around Major League Baseball, people scratching their heads saying, why would you do that? Well, they don't really know the ins and outs of what the Reds have and what they have coming up. And it's probably the same thing with the Bellinger move with the Cubs when it's all said and done. All right, let's talk a little Cincinnati Bengals. We have a clip that we'll share with you from last night. Craig Sandlin and, of course, our guy Jacob here, Chatterbox Bengals, talking about what would you consider to be the bigger surprise? Obviously, the Super Bowl run by the Cincinnati Bengals in 21 was a definite surprise. I think everyone expected the Bengals to be much improved and good that year, but no one expected them to make it to the Super Bowl with all the deficiencies that existed on that roster. And then you look at this year, as bad as it has been, the playoff window is still open. The schedule is opened up for the Bengals to potentially win out. What would you consider the bigger surprise? The Bengals finding a way to claw their way into this year's playoffs, or the Bengals making that Super Bowl run back in 2021? A question that was poised from last night's Chatterbox Bengals. We'll discuss that and more when we come back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and of course, one half of Chatterbox Bengals, Mr. Jacob Tissett, with you here today on this Wednesday. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us, whether you're listening on 1410 ESPN Radio or hanging out with us in the chat, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. We appreciate you nonetheless. Last night, Chatterbox Bengals, Jake, I know Craig had tossed out an interesting question that led to a debate between you guys, and we'll pick up with that here today on Off the Bench. But before we get into it, let's take a look at the clip. Last night, Chatterbox Bengals, Craig Sandlin put out an interesting question that we'll debate here.
Think back to 2021 and the Bengals run to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Is that more surprising, or is the Bengals making the playoffs this year at this point of the season, would that be more surprising?
Oh, I think that run was more winning those 4 in a row once we got in was more surprising, I think, than winning these 3. Or are you saying winning all 5 of these? Ooh.
I'm just saying the Bengals in 2024 making the playoffs.
It's close. It's really close.
So
here's
the thing:
if this team could win a couple games in the playoffs, it'd be more surprising. But just getting there, I think it's still more impressive that they got to Super Bowl.
I think getting there would be more surprising to me than actually winning a game in the playoffs. I'm not going to lie to you.
Okay.
I'm that fan that thinks that if we get there, we have a chance to make some noise.
If we get in, we're winning the whole thing. I've already gotten to that point. I've already gotten the Super Bowl's in New Orleans. The script's already written. Yeah, if we get in, we're winning the whole Super Bowl. I've already gotten to that point. But it's a tough battle, man. It's a really tough battle to get in here.
Head up, I'm all in on it happening. It would surprise me.
And again, that was Chatterbox Bengals last night. I think the interesting thing about both is this team this season, if they make the playoffs, it would be a huge surprise considering how horrifically bad this defense is and the struggles to run the football. You look back at the 2021 team that was able to make that run to the Super Bowl, Joe Burrow was sacked 70 times. I mean, if you were to tell me that any quarterback would be sacked 70 times, I would put a 0% shot that team is even winning a game in the postseason, much less making it to the Super Bowl. And then you look at how bad this defense is this year. They're struggling to win football games, putting up 30-plus points a game half the time. Both teams have elements to them that make it a surprise for where they're wanting to go. Obviously, the chapter's not done on this season, not by any means. But yeah, Jake, I'll send it to you. Obviously, at first it sounded like it was an easy, Super Bowl year. But the more you thought about it, this would still be a surprising year as well if they find a way to backdoor their way into the play.
I think something that really set it apart for me, and after thinking about it more, I do stick with the Super Bowl. I think the Super Bowl run was more impressive only because of the caliber of teams we beat. I think obviously we're a different team this year, and when you go to Super Bowl, you have to beat playoff teams the whole way. But most of this 5-game win streak the Bengals would have to go on here, 3 of the 5 are against bad teams. Ideally, the last week is against backups, against Pittsburgh. And then we're debating about whether or not the Broncos are a good team all year long, but we have to beat them to get into the last wild card spot. To go to the Super Bowl, we beat the Raiders, who obviously isn't the best team, but a really close game there. Then you go to number 1 seed Tennessee, and you go to Kansas City to play Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I just think that stretch with what that team was and the expectations, I think that's a little bit more impressive because even though the odds say that it would be crazy for the Bengals to make the playoffs this year, I think if they sneak in and we look at the overall picture and that Bengals B is in there at the 6 or 7 spot, then I think everyone would just kind of be like, oh, yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow got to the playoffs. Even though the situation is very impressive and surprising, I don't think the overall picture is nearly as surprising as the Bengals and Joe Burrow being in the Super Bowl that year, just with everything going on with the team at that time.
If you're throwing out the word impressive, the Super Bowl run will always be more impressive. They had a 5.5 win total. Up until that run, we hadn't seen a playoff win, let alone a Super Bowl appearance. So, and by the way, I understand that in playoff win as well. But I'm just saying we as in myself.
Sub-30-year-olds.
So that's going to be more impressive from that standpoint. But what's more crazy or more improbable? I would say it would be this one, given the fact that they've looked so bad on defense, and they would have to overcome a league's worst defense by scoring 40 a game with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase to somehow sneak into the playoffs at 9-8 when there was, I mean, you have a 1% chance. The Bengals have a 1% chance to make the playoffs. So I think this run would be more crazy. The other one is more impressive. This one will be more insane. I think, and I was talking with Reed yesterday about it. I said, Reed has the opinion that, we'll never feel like we felt on that Super Bowl run when the Bengals got there. Because, again, nobody expected it. You don't have any of those expectations. Right now, we don't have any expectations for the Bengals. We think they're dead. I think if they were to somehow sneak in the playoffs, win a playoff game, win 2 playoff games, this run could rival that. I think it could be as fun as that previous one. We'll just never be able to get the first playoff win off our back in X amount of years. The Super Bowl, everything that we got on that run was so cool.
Yeah, and knowing what we know now about that 2021 Bengals team, I think at the time it felt like, what the hell is happening? This is like so unprecedented. This is shocking. I know statistically that defense wasn't an elite defense, but there was elite playmakers all over that, defensive side of the ball. And that defense, people want to look at the defensive numbers as a whole for that season. I get that. But when you want to look at that final month and a half, that defense just clicked. That might not have been an elite defense for the entire season, but they became an elite playmaking defense, forcing turnovers, getting to the quarterback. They did so many things right in that final month and a half of that 2021 season that helped propel them to get to that Super Bowl. I think when you look at the playmaking defense that they had, when you look at the fact that you had Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Joe Mixon in the run game that was producing at that time, and you look at the depth that roster had, I don't think it's as surprising now looking back at it as what it felt like at the time. I feel like this, if they find a way to get into the postseason, a lot of it is because they needed to win the games that they had to, but that means other teams crumbled as well around them. There's a lot that the Bengals don't control when it comes to getting to the postseason outside of just winning the games in front of them. I think it would be really, really surprising to see them in the postseason. The probability is so low, in my opinion, of them getting there. It would be surprising. Would it be, and like you said, exciting? No. Even if it would be surprising, more surprising that they get to the playoffs this year than the other one that we're talking about. But it wouldn't be as exciting unless all of a sudden you find themselves going on that run. And Jake, I know you said, hey, at this point they get in, they're winning whole dang thing.
Yeah, I'm in.
We've talked about the fact that they match up. Technically, I mean, they could win they'll be in a shootout with the Bills, which will have a shot. They'll be in a shootout with the Bills, which means they'll have a shot. We've seen them have a shot to beat the Chiefs on the road in Kansas City already this season, and that Kansas City team was better a couple months ago than what they are right now. So the Bengals have a shot if they get into the postseason to do something that's even more surprising, and that's going to run after struggling to win the games they've had this year. But no, an interesting debate, an interesting talking point from last night. But yeah, when you look back at that 21 team, I don't think it's as surprising as what we once thought. When you look at all the weapons they had really on both sides of the ball, and let's not forget, I'm not taking a shot here. I know everyone's taking about Evan McPherson, but Evan McPherson was lights out. I think he accounted for 40 points for the Bengals during that playoff run. Everything clicked for them. Special teams, offense, defense, everything that could go right went right, even overcoming, obviously the offensive line deficiencies throughout that playoff run.
Yeah, I think the offensive line, was god-awful, which is just a tough reason for me to say that I'm not as surprised about that run. Just because, the weapons and stuff were great. I mean, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, all those guys playing in these games, it was awesome, and that's why I think the Bengals got to that point, was the weapons that they had, and obviously the defense and kicker were, monumental in winning those games in the playoffs, but they're not in the position to kick those field goals without their quarterback. So, I think you're definitely right when you look back on it. Maybe it's not as impressive, or impressive is the wrong word, but as surprising with the weapons and how they've come on since that season, but I still just think if you go back and no quarterback is making that run with that many sacks, at least statistically, it's never happened before. So the fact that he was able to overcome all that, I just don't think we're ever going to see something like that again, at least in the sacks department, statistically making a Super Bowl.
Sacks.
Yeah. A lot of sacks. A lot of sacks. Question, what was the total? Did he get hit 9 times? Did he get sacked 9 times against the Titans? What was that final
11
number?
Was not 11?
Was it double digits?
Maybe.
It was
I don't think it was double digits.
I think it was 9. It was either 8 or 9. It was just an insane number to get hit that many times and still. I mean, it was an ugly game. Obviously, it's a physical game. It was freezing out.
9 sacks.
9
sacks for 70 yards.
Just insane. But Nonetheless, all right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. That debate, of course, came from last night's Chatterbox Bengals. Jake, what's the upcoming Chatterbox Bengals schedule, by the way?
Thursday night, normal time, 7 to 8, and then Sunday for the game. That's what we got this week. And then definitely Tuesday next week, and still trying to figure out whether or not we're going to do Thursday. Oh, wait, no, Tuesday is Christmas Eve, so there won't be Tuesday next week, and then we'll decide whether or not we're going to do Thursday.
Happy holidays. There you go.
It's a mess, man. Trying to figure out the schedule's a mess.
You could just pre-record.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah, but then if you do that days early, because it's Christmas Eve, we don't want to record it early on Christmas Eve. You see what I mean?
But I'm saying you could do it Monday. Like if you did it Monday, then you just drop it Tuesday.
Yeah.
Or Thursday. I guess just Tuesday.
And then a lot of stuff happens in 24 hours, and we look like idiots.
Well, but that would be even better. That would be even better. And you could have like a little note that says if something happens, it's not our fault.
Yeah, because we re-air this show in Dayton, by the way, later in the day. I remember the other day, we're talking about Dayton UC and talking about the potential top 25 matchup. Will Dayton be ranked? Well, we record this, or not record, we're live in the morning from 10 to noon before the rankings came out. So by the time this was airing in Dayton, the rankings had come out. So as we're discussing that on the show, we're getting our emails and phones blown up over here saying how dumb we are that the rankings are out and we don't even know it and we don't know what we're talking about, all while not understanding that the show's recorded just a couple hours in advance earlier in the day. But that's what happens. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll step away for a few moments. We'll talk a little college football. College football playoffs kicking off later on this week, Friday night, and into the weekend, and it's full steam. We'll go from there. So we're going to talk college football playoffs when we come back. Jake's going to rank his top 5 quarterbacks in the college football playoffs as we head into the first-round matchups this weekend. We'll get to all of that and more when we come back. More Off the Bench next. I mean, we could pick up with that. Maybe not exactly what Jacob just said before. But we're trying to decipher is this cryptic or not so cryptic? I'm not really even sure what the hell this is, but Tyreek Hill just put out on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, that it's time for me to go, coach. Or it's time for me to go, coach. No period, no commas.
Punctuation
I don't really know what the hell
Let's
he's trying
Grandma.
to say, to be honest. Yes.
I think it's it's time for me to go, coach. I'm leaving. Bye-bye.
It's time for me to go, coach. I want to take the reins of the organization. Mike McDaniel's doing a bad job.
Maybe.
But who knows?
Interesting. We do have more breaking news. Now we're going back into the segment. Ooh. Kinner, our Buckeyes did something. There's a pulse in Columbus.
Whoa!
The number
they fired Ryan Day.
No. The number 2 offensive tackle in the transfer portal, Philip Daniels, has signed with Ohio State. Ohio State needs to add minimum of 3 or 4 offensive linemen in the portal. Haven't made any headway yet. Have been eliminated from a couple searches so far. But Philip Daniels signs with the Buckeyes. Huge get as they lose probably both tackles and both guards, or a guard, an interior guy, and both tackles. So you're going to have to really overhaul that offensive line. Huge get for the Buckeyes.
Doesn't surprise me, dude. That's a tough football team. They're very tough up front. It does not surprise me at all. The tradition continues of just remaining tough up front for Ohio State. But no, they needed to do that. They needed to get someone because they've missed already on a few top offensive linemen in the portal that have already entered, and of course that has fans already a little anxious, but Ryan Day and his staff, or maybe Vrabel and his staff, or whoever the staff is going to be next year. That's a big get for them.
I think Mike Vrabel's just kind of hanging out at like the halfway point between Chicago and Columbus. And if Ohio State loses to Tennessee, he takes the drive to Columbus. And if Ohio State beats Tennessee, he just takes the drive down to Chicago.
Love that.
I mean, Vrabel is a lock
to be the head
coach for. Yeah,
I think one of
Vrabel is a
one
lock.
of those two.
I keep hearing by the way, there's so many reports out there. I mean, all these people with their sources. Vrabel is a lock to be a head coach at the Jets, the Bears, right? Like, I mean, all these things. Yesterday, there was a weird clip that, Jake, you had sent it from Dan Orlovsky, was on the Pat McAfee show. He never said Ohio State, but when they brought up Ohio State, he just kind of looked at the camera kind of like goofy, like he wouldn't say yes or no. So, of course, that leads to speculation. Apparently, he buying a home in Columbus now, too, so people are talking about that. None of this – I have no idea what to make of that. I don't like to fall for that stuff, but it does it gets the people going when it's all said and done. But now people are talking about Ohio State potentially having a backup plan if Ohio State doesn't look good throughout this playoff, that maybe Mike Vrabel's the guy in waiting. And there's been all the clips of him saying he has no interest in coaching in college, and we know how things change. Dollar signs change everything, obviously. I don't want to buy into that too much, but again, I always love a good sports conspiracy theory.
Yeah, nothing is a vote of confidence in your head coach going into a playoff run like having a contingency plan in case he loses.
That's right.
Which, by the way, smart.
Oh, I love it.
I'm not even mocking it, to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't felt the joy I felt from that Dan Orlovsky clip when thinking about or watching football in a long, long time. So that was, I was giddy. Absolutely giddy watching that clip.
Is he your Buckeye version of Teoscar Hernandez? I mean, is like this just
I guess. Yeah. No, he's my Buckeye version of if the Reds would have signed Juan Soto.
Fair. I mean,
right.
Like,
that's a coach signing that isn't even on my radar in terms of realism. It's just dreams. So if they were able to get that one done, I'd be over the moon.
College football playoffs kick off this weekend, of course, and it's interesting. I've been following a lot of the draft talk as people, already getting their ducks in a row for that, coming up in April, and you're starting to look at the quarterbacks in college football right now. Very down year for college football quarterbacks. There's a lot of branded names. There's a lot of names that you're very familiar with, but I don't think there's a lot of superstar quarterbacks playing in the college ranks right now. I mean, there's Shedeur Sanders and others. I think he's a bigger name than he is a talent. I still think he's going to be drafted high because that's how this works. But I read a report yesterday that some scouts believe that Shedeur is not as good of a quarterback as what you would see in most seasons QBs coming out. But with that being said, you look at the teams that are left, you have to have a good quarterback to be able to compete for a national championship. But not great, good. This year, you just have to have a good quarterback to compete for a national championship. And I think you look at the list of quarterbacks that make up these teams in the playoff across the board. It's not underwhelming, but it's not overwhelmingly talented either. That's why Jake is going to give you his top 5 quarterbacks in the college football playoff. When we're watching these playoff games, obviously quarterback, that's going to be the big talking point. Jake, if you had to rank your top 5 quarterbacks participating in the playoffs starting this weekend, who are those quarterbacks and in what order?
Yeah, I'll start at 5 and go to 1. And I think the drop-off after the top 6 quarterbacks in this playoffs is pretty significant to the back half. I think after you get outside of the top 6, you're going to get into some quarterbacks that are more products of their rosters and the pieces around them, talking about Riley Leonard, Will Howard, Nico Iamaleava, Kevin Jennings, Gunnar Stockton, all those guys. I don't think they really add a lot to their teams, but kind of just drive the bus and facilitate. And they certainly have a chance to win a national championship, a lot of those guys. But outside of this top 6, I think the quarterback play isn't as dependent for the team's success. Honorable mention, I said there's 6, but you said do a top 5. So honorable mention, I'm going to give it to Quinn Ewers. I don't think Quinn's the best quarterback on Texas, which does hurt him in this ranking, but I think he's a good quarterback, and he's certainly going to have to play well in order for Texas to get to where they want to go. So Quinn is my honorable mention on this playoff top 5. At number 5, Cade Klubnik, Clemson's quarterback. I think he's stepped up big time in big games. He's made big progression this year in his second year as the starter at Clemson, and I think we can see that going throughout the playoff. I think the spread against Texas is a little too big. I think he'll play well against a tough defense. He has has his biggest test in game 1. If he can avoid getting thrown to the wolves against that Texas defense, then I think Clemson could sneaky go on a decent run there. At number 4, I have Sam Leavitt, the Arizona State quarterback. Arizona State 11-1 when, or 10-1, I should say. No, 11-1 because they won the conference championship. 11-1 when Sam Leavitt was starting at quarterback. He did not play against UC when UC picked up that win. So a one-loss team for Arizona State with this starting quarterback. We saw how teams last year were viewed with only their healthy roster, and Florida State fell. So I think Arizona State is much better than their rankings say because one of those losses did come with their backup quarterback. At number 3, I have Curtis Rourke, Indiana, Ohio transfer. He's put up a great season. The regression against Ohio State really scares me as he has to play more playoff caliber teams now. He tore up bad teams, but really did not look good against Ohio State, and that scares me as we move into more competitive rosters here in the playoffs. This is where it gets a little sticky, and I expect pushback, and I'm fine with that. At number 2, Dillon Gabriel. I think Oregon's quarterback has had a really good season. I just don't think he's great. I think he's a good facilitator who doesn't make a lot of mistakes, has a lot of counting numbers from playing a really, really long college career, but I think Dillon Gabriel's the second best quarterback in this playoff, and the number 1, I have Drew Aller. I think Drew Aller at Penn State has done exactly what I didn't think he would do, and that's take a massive step this year as a starter. And we saw his best game as a college quarterback in the Big Ten Championship against Oregon. I think he's going to continue to grow, and he announced already that he's coming back next year to play for Penn State. I think there's a world where he was a first-round pick this year. So for him to come back next year and continue to progress, I think Drew Aller is the best quarterback in this playoff.
Recap your 5 real quick.
At number 5, Klubnik. 4, Sam Leavitt. 3, Curtis Rourke. 2, Dillon Gabriel. 1, Drew Aller.
So no Will Howard.
No Will Howard. I have Will Howard at 8 behind Riley Leonard.
Okay. No, and I don't have a problem with that. I know you were pretty high on Will Howard for a bit, right? Like
I still think Will Howard has a better chance to win a national championship than a lot of the guys in my top 5. I don't think you need an elite quarterback at Ohio State. I think Will Howard, being a facilitator and trying to, not do too much, is going to be a key for Ohio State to win the national championship. So if I thought I had to put him higher on this list, I'd be less confident in the Buckeyes' chances.
Yeah, I think he has better arm. I think he has significantly better arm talent than Dillon Gabriel. But I will take Dillon Gabriel over Will Howard any day of the week because of what you mentioned earlier. Way more accurate and does not turn the ball over. Will Howard it's not like he has super high turnover numbers, but at the same time, when you look at when some of his turnovers have come, they've been in crucial moments of games. That's what scares me about Will Howard. And when you're entering the playoffs or you're going to be in close games, there's always going to be that little part in the back of your mind where you start to doubt, is he going to be able to make that accurate, that right throw? Now, I do think play calling screwed him against Michigan. I'm not making excuses. Ohio State deserved to lose that game. But I think play calling screwed him. I think Ryan Day's stubbornness put him in a bad spot against Michigan, but also made some horrific throws. Might have been concussed. I'm not even convinced that he was 100% healthy for the back half of that game either. I would like to think that was the case because some of those throws, I'm like, you can't be in your right mind throwing that pass, right? Like, it didn't make any sense. Some of the decisions he was making. They didn't even convert a first down in the second half or in the fourth quarter. They didn't even convert a first down in the fourth quarter against Michigan, which is just wild. But yeah, interesting. Nonetheless, the other thing you said too that caught my attention that I kind of have a problem with, not with what you said, but with the team. I remember
you got a problem, Kenner?
Oh yeah, we haven't had a problem in a while. We've
been doing so well.
We have. No, you brought up an interesting point earlier when you said Quinn Ewers honorable mention, but may not even be the best quarterback on his roster. I agree with what you are saying, and because of that, the problem I have is with Steve Sarkisian at this point. Like, I do believe, I remember back when Urban Meyer, JT Barrett, I felt a certain way about. I was a big JT Barrett fan, but there was still something as I'm watching him. I'm like, there's just something missing. There's just some. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not going to pretend to be a football or quarterback aficionado, but there's just something missing with JT Barrett, who put up a bunch of great numbers, set a lot of Big Ten freshman records that year that they won that national championship. But the offense, there was just like a ceiling with him at quarterback, and it was very obvious. That whole time, you can't tell me that when you saw Cardale Jones come in that Big Ten championship game and the offense just all of a sudden take off the way that it did, the way that they looked against Alabama, the way that they looked against Oregon in the national title game. My biggest frustration the entire time was that was sitting on your bench the entire time, and you were
Yeah.
just choosing to not go to it because of your loyalty to JT Barrett. Like, I had a huge problem with that with Urban Meyer because I felt he was being stubborn and not making the best, not putting the best players out there. I always credited, and we've talked about this, Nick Saban, the fact that he was willing to bench Jalen Hurts at halftime of a national title game to go to the better quarterback at that point because, hey, I can't be loyal to my starting quarterback. I got to do what's best to put my team in position to win. If Nick Saban thought like Urban Meyer, Nick Saban doesn't win that national title that year. Dabo Swinney, I gave credit for the Kelly Bryant thing. Kelly Bryant, they were 4-0. They had made the playoff the year before. They were highly ranked. There was no need to technically make that change, but he knew, hey, we're good with Kelly Bryant, just like Ohio State's good with JT Barrett, but we're national title good with Trevor Lawrence that year, and he made that gutsy decision. I always criticize Urban for that because you will never convince me. Okay, you'll never convince me that Cardale Jones just magically became good that week out of nowhere. That was sitting in your roster the entire time, and there's no way you didn't know that. You just chose to stick with JT Barrett. If Steve Sarkisian truly knows that Arch Manning is the better quarterback and you get knocked out of the playoffs early, I think that decision-making cost you a national championship. I'm not a fan of we know he's better, but hey, Quinn's been our guy for the last couple of years. I think that makes you a soft coach if that's the case. You got to make tough decisions, cutthroat decisions. And if you can't make those cutthroat decisions, you don't deserve to win a national title. I agree with you. I think Arch is better. And the fact that he's not starting is kind of wild, especially if Quinn fails. If Quinn looks horrible and they get knocked out by Clemson, and I think that they will, I think that's going to be a big talking point and should be.
It absolutely would be. And I don't know why you wouldn't start Arch if all the sentiment coming out of Texas throughout this transfer portal window has been true. The conversation has been if Quinn Ewers wants to come back to college that he has to transfer because Texas doesn't want him to be starting a quarterback there next year. They want to move on to Arch. They think he's bought his time, done what he needed to do to progress in that offense, and he should be the starting quarterback next year for Texas. And if you already think that, then why wouldn't you just start him now? It's the same conversation that we were going to get into yesterday with Devin Brown entering the transfer portal and still taking the second-team reps in the offense. A little different because we're talking about the starting quarterback, but if you have a guy that you know you don't want to be here next year and you have faith in the next guy, why wouldn't you get him as many reps as possible? I think if it's even a coin flip in the eyes of the coaching staff between Ewers and Arch Manning, I think they should go with Arch Manning because you know he's the quarterback of the future. And you pointed out the 2015 championship run with Cardale Jones, and obviously that's a big one for a lot of fans. But the one that sticks out more to me, talking about Urban sticking with the established guys, is 2017 because JT Barrett, such a tough year there with a couple losses, picked up 2 losses, still won the conference. But if you would have went to Dwayne Haskins a year earlier after what we saw him do the next year, it's hard to imagine what the ceiling could have been for that group because Dwayne Haskins, such a special quarterback in his time at Ohio State. And if he would have had 2 years under his belt, who knows what could have happened.
Yeah, that's a prime. I mean, thank you. That's an even better example because the whole time you could not have convinced me that Dwayne Haskins just magically became good out of nowhere. There's no way that he was bad one year and just became Heisman contending talented the next year. So who knows? But nonetheless, that Texas storyline, I think that's going to be a bigger talking point if they get upset by Clemson and Quinn Ewers doesn't look good. Nonetheless, by the way, if Quinn Ewers enters the trade, actually we'll pick that up with buy or sell coming up here in a moment. But good stuff there. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. We'll do a little buy or sell to close out the radio side of this when we come back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliott Roaring, Jacob Tissett with you here. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Buy or sell, let's jump into it. We talked a little Quinn Ewers college football in the previous segment. So buy or sell as we kick things off. Buy or sell Quinn Ewers returning to college in 2025. Buy or sell. Elliott, we'll start with you. Buy or sell to Quinn Ewers returning to college. Had a first-round NFL draft grade coming into the year. Now that has taken a major hit. If he does come back, is his future at Texas? I mean, there's so many question marks with Quinn Ewers, but buy or sell him returning to college in 2025?
Buy. He's going to come back because I think we've all seen this year he hasn't been good enough to be an NFL talent. There might be a team that still takes a chance on him, but he won't do it. I think he would come back next year, maybe probably play for a different team, and try to boost the draft grade because he lost all of it this year.
Yeah, I think the preseason top couple quarterbacks really tanked their stock. I mean, pretty much consensus was Ewers, Beck were the top two quarterbacks going into this year. With you'd have Shedeur and Milroe kind of floating back there, maybe with the chance to rise. But yeah, with the way this year's gone, I'd be shocked if Ewers didn't come back to school. It's been reported that he has multiple $4+ million NIL offers if he were to enter the portal. So yeah, I'd be shocked if he turned that money down. I don't think he's going to the league.
Do you guys remember a season where this many quarterbacks regressed to the point where their draft stock plummeted? I can't think of. I mean, look, I've seen it the opposite. I remember Joe Burrow's second year at LSU. He had a 3rd round draft grade. Not the first year at LSU, but his last year at LSU when that magical season happened. Joe Burrow made such a massive jump from a 3rd round draft grade heading into that year to winning a Heisman, undefeated, national champion, #1 overall pick, all of that. I've seen guys make that type of drastic jump before in the positive side. Can't remember a time where I've seen this many quarterbacks that had high draft grades coming into a year regress and take a step back the way we have this year.
Yeah, no, usually when you talk about quarterback prospects going into a college season, it's what guy is going to fly up the board that I didn't expect. What guy is going to be a top 5 pick that I have never heard of before. But this year, the guys that you expected to be there fell out, and the two of them that I guess stayed where they should be, Shedeur and Cam Ward, kind of rose based on nothing they did themselves. I mean, Cam Ward had a great statistical season, but I wouldn't say Shedeur really burnt it down this year and raised where he was as a prospect. I think everyone else around him just kind of fell off the edge of a cliff, and it's made these two guys look a lot better than I think they really are.
Yeah, and by the way, if Quinn Ewers does come back, is it at Texas? And if not, where could you see him going? Because I don't know how
there's no way it's Texas.
Yeah, I don't know how Texas would bring back the inferior quarterback. There'd be no way.
Because then you'd lose Arch, and if Arch goes somewhere and plays well, then it's over for Sark. I mean, you'd be gambling your job at that point. I have Oregon circled just because that seems like the path they continue to go. But they do have Dante Moore there, former #1 overall recruit. Maybe they have progressed him along nicely and expect to have him start next year. But to go from Bo Nix, who played a full career at Auburn, and to Dylan Gabriel, who played a full career at UCF and Oklahoma, to Quinn Ewers, who played a full career at Texas, I think it makes sense. And it wouldn't cause a very big drop-off for Oregon if they don't feel confident in Dante Moore.
Who was the quarterback at USC? That entered the portal, and I forgot where he even picked. He was linked to Michigan. I forgot USC's quarterback that entered the portal. My apologies, but
Miller Moss.
He was linked
to Louisville.
Miller Moss. So Miller Moss goes to Louisville. Miller Moss was linked to Michigan. I thought that's exactly where he was going to end up, and the fact that he didn't, I thought was interesting. You want to talk about the rivalry and all the aspects that exist between Ohio State and Michigan. I think it would be very unique and interesting if Quinn Ewers ends up, entering the portal and ending up in Michigan in Ann Arbor. I think that would be a unique thing to see. I think that could potentially be a landing spot for him as well. Oregon obviously makes sense too, as you just talked about. What about Ohio State? Could Quinn Ewers go back to Ohio State? Because right now you have Julian Sayin, who you would like to think is ready to grab the starting ranks to go. Devin Brown's entering the portal. Obviously only 1 year of Will Howard. But at some point, if you're Ohio State, like, do you want to go the 4th straight year of having a 1 year quarterback? Like you've done that now with Kyle McCord. You've just done that with Will Howard. So it'd be the 3rd straight year of giving the keys to the car for a 1 year quarterback. Isn't there some, sustainability of having a guy that you can give the reins to for at least a 2 year run that you would get with Julian Sayin, maybe more?
Yeah, I'm very, very high on Julian Sayin. I think he's going to be an incredible quarterback for Ohio State. I think he's going to start for multiple years. I think he's going to be a 2 year starter for the Buckeyes before they move on to Tavian St. Clair. And that's really what you want in college football. You want multi-year starters, and I think you certainly rock with Julian Say, and I wouldn't be opposed to bringing in a transfer quarterback to battle for that role. I think that wouldn't be a bad idea, but if you pay Quinn Ewers what he'll demand on the open market and NIL, you're bringing him in to start, and I certainly don't want to do that. A reunion with Ohio State would be interesting because they play Texas week 1. Texas comes up to the shoe week 1, so Quinn Ewers versus Arch Manning would certainly be fun, but I don't think the Buckeyes will be interested in Ewers.
Yeah, the other mindset too, Ryan Day, if he feels like he's truly coaching for his job next year, do you want to give the reins over to a first-year starting quarterback and hope that he gets it, or do you want to bring in a veteran that you're going to feel, very confident in, that is going to be capable of playing in a high-stakes game? Because keep in mind, they've lost 4 straight to Michigan, and you just lost your 4th straight game against them while on your home field. Now you have to try to snap that against a significantly better Michigan team next year in Ann Arbor. So that's going to be challenging for a first-year quarterback if that is truly the case. And by the way, if Julian Sain is not developed and ready to go, keep in mind Devin Brown's the backup quarterback. Devin Brown's not very good in my opinion. I'm not a Devin Brown guy. I thought Ryan Day was supposed to be this quarterback whisperer, and it kind of turned into that. What he did with Dwayne Haskins, what he did with C.J. Stroud, what he did with Justin Fields. Kyle McCord he looked better at Syracuse than he did at Ohio State. And I don't think he was horrible at Ohio State, but I don't think he made that. He was a 4 or 5 star quarterback. He didn't look like it. You look at Will Howard this year, very, very solid, but I was expecting a little more considering the NFL weapons around him. And if, obviously Aaron Nolan, who just entered the portal, wasn't good enough to compete for that job. If Julian Sain isn't ready to go next year, I think Ryan Day is all of a sudden starting to lose a little bit of the lure that's around him, that he was this QB whisperer. I'm not getting that vibe anymore. Julian Sain needs to be the guy, and he needs to be successful, and he needs to hit again, because it's starting to be a little bit of a dry spell for Ryan Day when it comes to the quarterback development.
Especially with Aaron Nolan transferring, kind of being pushed out of Columbus, the guy that had committed to the Buckeyes, had been committed to the Buckeyes for a long time, a guy who was a top 5 quarterback in the class that fans have been really excited to see wear the scarlet and gray for a while. But after getting Sain out of the portal, the number 1 QB in that class, then, Ayers being pushed out. So if you're going to make that decision before seeing either of them play, you got to be right. And if Aaron Nolan goes somewhere else and tears it up and Julian Sain stinks in Columbus, then that could certainly spell the end for Ryan Day if a loss to Tennessee doesn't do that. So.
Buy or sell Elliott, Bill Belichick, first-year head coach for the Tar Heels, North Carolina. Buy or sell Bill Belichick making the playoffs in his first season at UNC?
No. Sell. He's going to make the playoffs one time, but he's not going to do it this season. No chance.
Do you think he gets an extension?
From June?
Well, I'm saying longer than 3 years.
Yeah, I think he does.
Okay.
I think he gets offered it. I don't know if he'll do it.
Okay.
He gets offered a deal longer than his current deal. I just don't. I mean, he's 72.
I don't think he's going to make a playoff in the next 3 years. That's why I was asking.
I think he makes.
That's a quick turnaround.
I think he makes one in year 2 or 3.
Okay.
I think he's going to make one in year 2 or 3. Because I just don't think you have to be that good anymore. You don't have to be like a top 10 team. You got to be like in contention to be in contention. And then you get to a ACC championship game and you're in.
That's true. Yeah, no, we'll see what happens. I think a big telltale sign this year is going to be how he attacks the portal. Just 1 transfer so far. I expected them to be killing the portal right out of the gate, and the only transfer they have is an FCS center. So I think if he's going to be able to compete in year 1 and year 2, then it's going to have to be portal guys. And I expected him to be more active so far. So I'm kind of washing this season away. And then if you're asking about making the playoffs, you're giving them a 2-year stretch to turn around an organization. That's even the wrong word. A school that the football programs are so separated from the schools that it is an organization.
It's a professional
they
sports
have
team.
GMs.
They're professional sports
Yeah,
teams.
just screw it. Organization. The organization. I don't think it's going to be enough time to turn it around in 2 years. And if you're washing away year 1, yeah, I think he could leave it a lot nicer than he found it. I think he will leave it a lot nicer than he found it. But I also don't think Steve's a very good coach. So it'll be how long until they can fire his son until North Carolina makes a playoff, in my opinion.
Poor Steve, man.
Yeah, can we do a Bronny bit about Steve?
Steve, yeah. A nepotism bit. And man, he doesn't have the good looks like Bronny, that's for sure.
He got a tongue, though.
Ooh,
I'd like to see Steve drop 30 in a G League game, though. So,
yeah, that's right.
Right. Looks like a lizard and has a mullet. By the way, is Bill Belichick's the oldest coach in college football right now, right?
There's always
72.
There's always some old hag at some weird school.
Who's the oldest coach to ever coach a game? Do we know that answer?
Old hag. I love that take. There's always
Bill
some
Belichick
old hag.
is the oldest coach in college football. He's 72. Kirk Ferentz is 69. Temple's coach 65. Utah's coach 65. Houston's coach 64. So, well, Kurt Signetti almost 64 as well up there as one of the oldest coaches. Yeah, no, a lot of old guys.
By the way, North Carolina. By the way, that's what's funny is the board at North Carolina was kind of pushing them to go younger with their next hire, and Mac Brown was the oldest head coach in college football last year, so they moved on from him. And they
said that they were parting ways with Mac Brown because the game had passed him by, and they hired a guy that's the same age.
That's not in the NFL because the game has passed him by. So buy or sell North Carolina making the playoff in Bill Belichick's first season. Look, I'm not going to confidently buy it, but I think there's a good chance that could be. I think the ACC is bad. I'm not a fan of the ACC. Obviously, it takes a team or two to have a good portal session, and all of a sudden they're right there in the mix. North Carolina's schedule is god-awful next year. It's very winnable, if you will. I think North Carolina could be the Indiana of the ACC next year. Signetti came in, brought in some players, and look at the way that turned around. Now, you talked about how slow they've been in the portal thus far, North Carolina. But hey, if Bill Belichick goes to get his Quinn Ewers, if he goes and gets a veteran quarterback out of the portal, and you get you hit on some receivers there, get just a couple key pieces on defense. I think I don't know how many holes are on this roster for North Carolina. The other thing too, Bill Belichick, he likes to thoroughly vet guys. Yeah. He wants to know exactly who you are as a person and player. I don't know if you have the time to do that. I don't know if you know what I mean? Like, do you have time to meet when you have so many holes on the roster to fill? Do you have time to meet and thoroughly vet every single name that's out there? I think he's going to have to learn how to make quicker decisions, or if he's going to be, that particular guy that's going to vet everything, to full detail, that could work against him as well, because these kids aren't going to wait. These kids are going to get their money one way or another, and they could play for a contender one way or another. I think that could work against him if he's not acting and moving fast enough. We'll see. When it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think you're right.
To the NFL we go. The Chiefs have been to the AFC title game for 6 straight seasons. Buy or sell, the Chiefs getting back to the AFC title game for their 7th straight season.
As long as Mahomes is healthy and he's playing, I'm not going to bet against the Kansas City Chiefs. Few have tried and few have failed to do that method. So I'm gonna ride with the Kansas City Chiefs to do it again. I don't think the team is very good. I think Patrick Mahomes is having a bad year, but they don't lose games, and it's at some point you just get proven wrong time and time again. So they're gonna go. It's just who are they gonna play? And there's a lot of good teams in the AFC up top. There's the Steelers, there's the Ravens, and the Bills. One of those 3 teams is going to play the Chiefs in the AFC title game. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think this is the first year they don't make a Super Bowl in a little bit. I think they don't make a Super Bowl this season.
Yeah, I'm saying the Chiefs go to the AFC Championship and probably the Super Bowl. I mean, we'll see what the number is when we get there, but I'll certainly probably bet on them if it's in Arrowhead. I just have a tough time imagining that they're not going to get the 1 seed at this point and get to the AFC Championship then. You just got to win one.
Yeah.
So winning one game at home with a reseeded field in the second round, I think the Chiefs are going to get back there. I was vindicated yesterday. I was a little bit nervous, feverishly refreshing the Kansas City Chiefs Twitter page because I said that Mahomes was faking it. Yesterday, I said it was a joke. His ankle injury is a joke. He wasn't even listed as limited on the practice report.
Yikes.
He full participant, full go. So when the media is talking about how great this MJ flu game is this weekend when he's doing this on a hurt ankle, just remember it's not real. Just like that flu.
Oh.
Yeah. To get back to the AFC, this is the most vulnerable that this Chiefs team has looked. And so, I mean, seems like every win they are just sneaking by in these most miraculous way possible, right? Like I know the Browns game was, there was a report that came out earlier in the week that had the circumstances been different and the opponent was making it more of a challenge, that Patrick Mahomes probably could have come back in that game, but just didn't feel like it was worth it on that particular stance. Outside of that 21-7 win over Cleveland, I mean, you're having to hold on for dear life to beat the Chargers, to beat the Raiders, nearly lost to the Panthers, of course. You lose to the Bills 30-21, and that's the last really good team that they have faced. I think this is the most vulnerable they have looked. Maybe it's one of those where they just haven't flipped that switch, and once the playoffs get here, all of a sudden you just see them start to rout teams. It wouldn't surprise me. We're at the point now with the Chiefs where it's like the Patriot rules. You can't bet against them. But for 7 straight years to get to the AFC title game, that's tough to do. But if you have that 1 seed and the home field advantage in the first round bye, obviously it makes it significantly simpler. Until I see them actually take that step back and regress, I can't truly sit here and confidently say I don't buy them making the AFC title game. I do. I don't buy them getting to the Super Bowl, though. I think right now, look, Josh Allen, I think the Bills. I like the Bills out of the AFC at this point. It was the Texans for me coming into the season. They've mightily regressed, obviously. I think right now Buffalo is the hottest team in football. I think they look untouchable right now. We'll see what happens.
There's one team the Bills don't beat in the playoffs, though. There's one team.
Well, there's 2 teams.
Well, there's actually a couple.
I think there's actually a few teams.
There's many. The Cowboys as well.
Should we list the teams that the Ravens can't beat in the playoffs?
Yeah. So that's just
Titans, Bengals, Patriots, Chiefs. Have they played the Bills?
Chargers? They beat the Chargers? They beat the Chargers.
They did.
All right. That wraps it up for us. On the radio side, at least. We'll close it out on the YouTube side. Dayton listeners, appreciate you. We'll do it again tomorrow. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right, and we are back off the bench. This is just the YouTube portion, so we don't have to do all the radio mumbo jumbo. But what were you guys? You guys were just talking about Noel Marte. What's going on with him?
So he's hitting right now in winter ball. He's hitting 207 with a 283 OBP, 305 slug, over 22 games played.
Not the best.
Yeah, I would say. By the way, when was this? So 2 nights ago, he was 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. He's not good.
I think if you could say one thing nice about that stat line, you would say that it's not quite what you wanted to see this offseason.
Sure.
To build faith for next year.
Sure. I certainly don't want Noel Marte to be my starting third baseman on a major league roster.
Well, good thing you have Mr. Arthritis, Mr. Tendonitis, Jamer Candelaria.
Yeah, poor Jamer. He hurt his toe. From sprinting down the sidelines like a stallion. But listen, it's tough to see. I said last year Noel Marte was going to be the Reds' best player. He was the guy I was most excited for. I thought his defense was good. I thought he gave the Reds consistent hitting in the very limited sample size I saw him. I guess I was wrong. Hand up. I was wrong again. I was wrong about Noel Marte. I don't know when you can't really trade him because he has no real value at this very second. But
what if he does?
You still think he does?
What if? I heard Casillo's on the block. Hey, swapsies. Take backs. Take backs.
Yeah, just have him back. I don't know. I don't know what to do with Noel Marte.
Yeah, no, it's not good.
Is CES playing in this Winter Ball League or no?
I don't know.
I don't know who plays in the Winter Ball League outside of him, and Jameer I know is playing in it, so we'll see.
Speaking of playing, I don't think it wasn't in the same league, but I saw pictures posted yesterday. Ellie De La Cruz down in the Dominican, he was just wearing full head to toe his entire All-Star uniform.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
At first I was like, that's kind of funny, and then I was like, he's 22.
It's like
of course he is.
It's like going to a Burger King wearing, your green jacket.
What would you do if you moved to a different country and then came back to Cincinnati as an All-Star at age 22? You'd never take that jersey off.
No, I would wear it forever. I'd tattoo it onto my body.
Yeah, I just thought that was awesome.
By the way, throw out another buy or sell quick that I had on here. But buy or sell Russell Wilson to be the Steelers quarterback in 25.
Oh, I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to buy it even further than that. I'm going to buy the Steelers making one of the worst franchise decisions of all time and giving him a long-term extension. I'm talking 3-4 years at like $40+ million. I think they extend Russell Wilson to be their quarterback of the future, which is just an insane move in my mind.
I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy it because what's the alternative option? It's Justin Fields, and I don't think
Probably trade for Kenny Pickett. He had success at Pitt.
Listen. If Russell Wilson's going to be as good as he's been this year, there's no reason to not bring him back next season. There's no reason. And Mike Tomlin, I mean, despite what everybody wants to say about him, all that guy does is win football games. Russell Wilson absolutely gives him his best chance to win football games next season. They're not going to be bad enough for a good draft pick. I guess you could maybe, given the quarterback situation in this draft, you could probably wait. But I don't.
Just because they're bad quarterbacks doesn't mean they'll be there late.
You think they all go that early?
I think 3 of them go in the top 10.
We'll see. But Russell will 100% be back with the Steelers. 100%.
Cam Ward, how far back? What's the latest you see him being picked? Because I saw something yesterday that said he's a first-round grade, but like a late first round, which is wild.
The latest he goes is second overall.
I was going to say, yeah, there's no way.
I think the latest Shedeur goes is second overall. I think the Giants and the Raiders are taking those 2 quarterbacks right off the top, 1-2, bang, bang.
Just boom, boom.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I'm not down on Cam Ward. I just, like, when I read that yesterday, I was just kind of scratching my head. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But it just seems like a lot of teams are like, and that's the other predicament some of these teams are in too. Cam Ward, okay, you take him because it's the 2 best quarterbacks in this draft class, but are they 2 legitimate quarterbacks? Like, that's the thing. Like, when you say, well, he's the second best quarterback in this draft class, it doesn't mean that he's a good quarterback or a good NFL prospect. Is that the case, though? If your team needed a quarterback and got Cam Ward, would you feel excited about that?
I would. I would be more excited about Cam Ward than Shedeur, if I'm being honest. I think he's my favorite quarterback in this draft class.
I wouldn't be excited, but, I mean, you have to take a quarterback if you're the Raiders. You at least have to try if they're going to be there, and I think he's good enough to at least warrant a draft pick that high. Again, he's not like a Joe Burrow. He doesn't make me excited, but that's what they're in. That's the corner that they're stuck in right now.
Yeah, Shedeur Sanders was pictured throwing with Malik Neighbors out on like the streets of New York a couple days ago. So maybe the way that they're leaning, and depending on where you look, Giants or Vegas has the number 1 pick right now. That's dependent on strength of schedule, which obviously you won't know till the end of the year with the results of the other teams that they've beaten. So the same thing actually in play for the 1 seed in the NFC. You can't predict who would be there with 2 losses yet because it's strength of record, and the Vikings and Eagles' strength of record varies drastically based on the results of these next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm reading more about this Kirk Cousins situation, by the way. Early, the big debate when they went out and got Michael Penix Jr. and how bad of a draft pick that was, not the talent, but just the decision after giving as much money and years to Kirk Cousins. But Kirk Cousins, I mean, they paid him $90 million for 14 starts. They owe him a lot of money still remaining. He has a no-trade clause. This looks to be like one of those another horrible QB contract that has been offered out. Obviously, the Browns with Deshaun Watson. You look at the Russell Wilson deal with Denver from a few years ago. Would you put this one up there with those 2 as far as being one of the worst QB contracts in recent history?
No, because the out isn't terrible. I think if it was the full 4 for 180, I think that would be horrendous. But they have an out after 2 years, just 2 for 100. So they're going to be able to cut him if they can't find a trade partner after next season, with basically just eating like $37 million total over the next 3 years. So I don't think it's quite as bad as the Denver situation, but it's certainly not pretty. And they told me that they didn't believe in Kirk Cousins' longevity as soon as they drafted Penix. So I don't know why you give him a 4-year contract. I wasn't necessarily in the same boat. Obviously wasn't here at the time when we were doing draft talk, but I think that Penix really was a good pick there. I don't think there was a lot of needs for the Falcons. Could you have used an edge rusher? Absolutely. But if you think the team was relatively ready to go and Kirk was the final piece in free agency, why put all your eggs in that basket? If you think Penix can be really good, if Kirk tails off, then that would be certainly a good way to go. And if Penix can lead into the playoffs, that might turn into one of the best draft picks. If you turn around from, we signed a quarterback to a big extension with worries, we're bold enough to draft a quarterback in the top 10, and that quarterback takes the reins, leads us to the playoffs, that'd be a huge round of applause for Fontenot and that whole Falcons front office. But, yeah, it certainly was questionable at the time, but this is paying off.
He's got the no-trade clause, right?
Kirk does, yes. But I would imagine if his option is sit on the bench for 1 year, $30 million, or get traded for potentially 3, he would take that.
Yeah, I would sit on that bench so hard.
Without the out, I would agree. Like, without the contract out, I would 100% agree. But if you go somewhere else and you play well next year, they could potentially pick up those last 2 years of the deal. And at his age, I mean, how old is Kirk? Kirk, 36? I don't think you're exactly turning your nose up at a 2-year contract.
No.
Yeah. Is it Ari Mirov? I'm not really sure how to pronounce his last name, but he tweeted this out a little bit ago, just talking about the fact, comparing this to the Derek Carr situation from a few years ago, when you have that no trade clause in there, and basically saying you're not trading me, cut me, pay me what you owe, and become a free agent and choose the next destination. That type of path that we've seen with Derek Carr. We watched it with Russell Wilson, very similarly there. And Cousins could be, he could sign for the minimum next season with the team if they end up going that route, where he will not cooperate or to sign off on a trade. He just wants to pick his destination. God, imagine another situation where you have a quarterback like this going to sign for $1.25 million somewhere, like what we saw with Russell Wilson. I still don't think the Steelers took advantage of that opportunity either. Like, they could have been more aggressive in free agency when you're spending that little on your QB room, which is wild. Not many teams get that opportunity.
Ayuk and Devontae Adams. How much more help do you want Russell Wilson to have? Oh, wait. They didn't get either. But they drafted Roman Wilson in the top 3 rounds. He's been great. Right, Kenner?
I mean, it's worked out well, hasn't it?
0 catches.
Wide receiver whispers over there. And then when they do develop wide receivers, they have to trade them because they're head cases when it's all said and done.
Speaking of Roman Wilson, we talked about it last night on Chatterbox Bengals. It's Jermaine Burton's stat, but Roman Wilson falls into it as well. The list of top 90 wide receiver draft picks that have under 10 catches in their rookie year since 2010, ugly list.
Let's see it.
Just abysmal.
Read some.
The best name on this list career-wise is Eric Decker. You have names like Amari Rodgers, Malachi Corley in this year's class trending that way. Then you get down to our dear friend, John Ross. Zero catches as a rookie. Roman Wilson, 0 catches. Jalen Tolbert in 2022. You can go back to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside with 10 catches as a rookie, and Andy Isabella with 9. It's a longer list, but certainly no good names.
Were Isabella's catches in the postseason with those 2 miracle catches? Or did he have 1 miracle catch?
Was that his rookie year?
I don't know. I don't know if that was his rookie year or not.
In Arizona, you're talking
about?
Yeah.
He had 2 big catches. I got to look it up.
Yeah, but just crazy with the lack of production for a top 90 pick at wide receiver. If they can't get Burton, what's he at? He's at 4 catches right now. If they can't get Burton 7 catches in the next 3 weeks, then statistically his career's in trouble.
His career's over.
By the way, assuming T's not back with Cincinnati next year, we're talking about the Falcons with Kirk Cousins, but Michael Penix Jr., and you look at, Robinson and the weapons they have there. I'm surprised that Atlanta doesn't get mentioned for T. Higgins. I think T would look good with the Falcons in that offense, especially with really either of those quarterbacks. I'm surprised the Falcons are never a team that's mentioned for T. And maybe it's a money thing too, with all the money they have going to Kirk Cousins.
I think they have their number 1 receiver, at least the way that they view it. I think they'd be paying T to be the number 2 in Atlanta from their point of view. So that's the only reason why I don't think that necessarily makes sense without an elite quarterback. Now, if Penix shows you that he's burning the world down in these last 3 weeks, you sneak into the playoffs, then I think we're having a different discussion going into next year, because you have a rookie contract and a quarterback and damn good weapons already. Maybe you add T and you're over the top, but I do think they're incredibly high on Drake London. And I don't know that they've given up on Kyle Pitts as the wide receiver 2 type player in that passing offense. We'll see what happens with Penix. But, yeah, I think that offense, weapons-wise, is in a really, really good spot. I like Mooney a lot. I like Ray McLeod a lot. I think they're a really, really good team. We were high on them, Casey and I, coming into the season. They've stunk it up so far, but maybe this Penix change will turn it around.
I thought this was going to be Kyle Pitts' year. I thought this was going to be the year, and it just wasn't.
No. Yeah, and as a Kyle Pitts stockholder, I'm going to have to start taking out a mortgage or something, because we're losing money.
You're losing
We're
it.
losing.
You're
We are
losing it
hemorrhaging
hard.
funds. There's a hole in the boat.
I mean, you're losing it hard.
Yeah, we're taking on water big time.
3 touchdowns, 2 of them came in 1 game.
Yeah, that game was sick, though.
It was a good one. 4 for 91 against the Bucs.
By the way, I don't know if you guys saw this either, but how about this? I mean, the team is in to get a franchise quarterback possibly. DJ Uiagalelei has apparently declared for the draft.
Yeah, and I'm going to be dating Sydney Sweeney.
Are you really?
Should draft him.
Yeah, same chance as DJ playing in the NFL.
Bengals should draft him.
Yeah, we do need tight end depth. Eric Altor's ACL, Mike Gesicki 1-year deal. That 6'4", 250 body could really help as an extra lineman.
What a fall off. That guy. I mean, actually, earlier we were talking about QBs who have regressed, and we don't see that often. He might be the top of the list of a guy that looked, the part early on and just got worse and worse as each season went on. But, yeah, he never took that next step.
He's going to get drafted, guys.
You think so?
Yeah. He's going to do something at his pro day that gets clipped up.
Yes.
And he's going to get drafted. Not high. QB 10, 6th round, 7th round?
Has to be 7th round.
He'll get drafted. He'll get drafted.
The way the draft works, they take the good quarterbacks and they beat them up and tell you why they're bad. They take the bad quarterbacks and tell you why they're sleepers.
That's exactly.
And then it's just that's the maze the whole way, all the way up into the draft. But all right, well, anything else to wrap it up today?
Are there any kickers the Bengals can draft this year?
Any kickers?
Yeah.
Whew.
What's Michigan's kicker? Was he a senior?
He's coming back. No, he'll be coming back.
That guy has a boot.
I would be lying to you if I had gotten to the kicker. If I said I got to the kickers part of my big board so far, but I'll add it to the list. I'll do a top kickers for you.
Please,
I'll add it there.
We need a top kicker. We don't have a
You're
kicker.
not
anymore.
on Cade York?
No, I'm not on an kicker.
What if instead of drafting a kicker, we drafted a holder?
That's better. Jacob threw this idea out yesterday. What if we brought back Kevin Huber and his full-time role on the team is just to hold footballs? He does nothing else. He gets paid vet minimum. He comes in, he holds footballs at age 52, and that's his role. And he's captain of the team.
I appreciate the credit. I'm pretty sure that was Reed's idea.
Was that Reed?
I think so.
Damn
but
it.
Yeah, no, I'll take
Credit
it.
to Reed.
It was a
Sorry.
great idea.
It was one of you two.
I think Huber proved at the end of his career that he couldn't punt. Absolute jello leg, but he got the ball down, and McPherson banged it through. So Rico obviously struggles doing that. We could certainly use some help. My question has always been, where are we at, Jake Browning? I mean, I know backup quarterbacks don't hold in the NFL anymore, but Buddy doesn't do anything. I mean, if Joe Burrow gets hurt, the season's over. Let's learn how to hold instead of practicing quarterback.
I don't know why they stopped doing that. I mean,
It also gives you more fake ability and stuff like that. Quarterbacks hold in college all the time.
It keeps you on your toes a little bit.
Now get this, what if we draft Carson Beck?
To hold?
He won Holder of the Year last year.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Is that an award?
Yeah.
That's not an award.
The Hobie? Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah, then let's draft Carson. I'm all in on that.
Third string emergency practice squad quarterback / holder. He would make our defense
That's about
better.
Carson Beck or Steve Belichick. Which one?
To play quarterback?
No, to be who's more handsome.
Oh. Carson Beck got a Cavender.
Yeah, it's true.
That comes down to who has more money.
Yeah.
Carson Beck, about a week before he was dating the Cavender twin, signed a deal with a private jet company and Lamborghini as NIL sponsors. Just connect some.
Yikes.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for us. We'll do it again tomorrow. Till tomorrow, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.